Hi there, welcome back. If you've done lesson 1 and 2, then you will know who I am. Liquin from South Africa. My friends call me Loki, but I know it's a little bit difficult for people outside of South Africa to pronounce my name. We are going to chat about clouds today, and I'm going to do a cloud demo. Now, the first thing I want to say is make sure you know your subject. Observation, observation, observation. Make sure you look at clouds, all kinds of clouds, every day. Just go outside, look at the clouds, take photos, collect pictures, not other people's paintings. Although you can look at them, but you can't use them. You can use them as a reference, but not really to paint exactly, because they have copyright on their paintings. And there are copyright on the photos as well. But we're going to have a look at the shadows, the lights, the kinds of clouds, etc. So what I would like to suggest is get yourself a little book that you paste all your clouds pictures in, collect them, look at them, study them, go to Google, go and find out about clouds. How are they formed? Now, the first thing we need to know about clouds is that clouds are actually not white. Clouds are multicolored because they reflect light. So they actually have all the colors of the rainbow in them. But our eyes perceive them as being white. Isn't that interesting? So when we paint them, we don't use black, white, grey as is. Those clouds would look very chalky and unnatural. So we're going to bring colors in, blues, yellows, oranges, reds. We're going to make pink clouds, orange clouds, yellow clouds, but without them really being that color. We're going to add a little bit of those colors to our white to make our clouds look interesting. Now I'm going to do 3 demos. The one is Cirrus Clouds. Those are the clouds that's very wispy, little lines. And for those, we can use a very hard brush, or we can use a fan brush, or anything else that would make stripes or little lines. You can practice, you can try different things. Then we're going to do sort of a universal cloud, a cumulus cloud, cumulonimbus, a little bit of rain clouds. And for those, you can use a sponge, you can use a hard brush. I'm going to use a hard brush to do that demo for you. And for the little edges, I'm going to use a filbert brush, the one that's round and flat. And then the last bit, I'm going to show you how to make clouds, or how to paint clouds, using a palette knife. And there you load a lot of paint on your painting, and it can look beautiful. Now, I'm going to reiterate some of the things I'm saying here while I'm doing the demo. But the one thing you must remember is if your sky is very colorful and beautiful, don't let it compete with your landscape or seascape or whatever else is below the clouds. They cannot compete. They can't both be very busy. The one must take all the attention and the other one must take less attention. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to use quite a big canvas this time. I'll give you the dimensions when I start. And you can do it on a little painting if you like. But I'm going only to do my sky part today. And on another day, I'll do the sea on the bottom part, or a landscape, or whatever else. So I can keep it if I don't want to finish the whole thing now. It's all up to me or up to you when you do your painting. So, let's not waste any more time. Let's start painting. Yay! Right, this is my setup. I've got my brushes. I've got my palette paper. I'm going to put my paint on. And there I have dirty tips and clean tips. This is just my clean tips in a jar. This is my clean tips that I'm going to use. Let's have a look at my brushes. This is a filbert brush. These two are full bits. I like using the very small one for my edges, but the bigger you're painting, the bigger brush you use, so it's up to you. Then this one is my flat brush. That's another flat brush. I'm going to do my sky with them. I can choose one of them. And this is my hard brush that I'm going to make my clouds with. It's quite hard. It used to be white. You can find it at a hardware store, and it's very nice to do clouds with. I can use a bigger one if I want. And for my wispy clouds, I have my fan brush. You can use any kind of brush. I also have this one that has little hairs. You see at the edge, the hairs are thinner than the rest. They also make nice wispy clouds, but they're not always available. So there are my brushes, and there is my setup. Here are the colors that I'm using. I'm using cerulean blue. It doesn't really matter what kind you're using, although I prefer Winsor & Newton, but I don't always get that in stock. We live in a very small coastal town. And then I've got alizarin crimson. It's a red, but if you mix it with pink, it's a very nice pink. And I have ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, and then I also have acrylamide or lemon yellow. It's a very light yellow. So what we started with was a cadmium red, ultramarine, and a cadmium yellow. So now we're just adding to our repertoire of paints. We're adding cerulean, and we are adding alizarin and lemon yellow, or acrylamide lemon yellow. So from now on, these two yellows, the two blues, and the two reds are the ones that I'm going to use mostly in all of my paintings. So that's my basics. What also makes very beautiful clouds is yellow ochre, but you might not have that, and I'm not going to use it today, just especially for the beginners. But the more you're going to paint, you can always add yellow ochre to your repertoire of paints. There are all my paints. I like to put my paints on the side so that I have the middle to mix my paints. And of course I'm going to use white as well. I like soft mixing white. And the Winsor & Newton is lovely, very nice and soft and pliable. I have quite a big board. It is 60 centimeters by 50 centimeters. And I have drawn my horizon line 40 centimeters from the top, so that I have quite a bit for the bottom part, but I have a larger part for my clouds. And I've drawn it with a ruler so that it's nice and straight. I like to use a pencil. You can use paint, you can use charcoal, anything you like. Coloring pencils also work very well, especially if you know that you're going to have a C at the bottom. Then you can use blue to draw your line with. Now the first thing that I like to do is to mix my paint, and I love using this small palette knife. You can use whatever you choose to work with, try them and see which one works well for you. The way that you hold a palette knife is like this, so that you can scrape the paint and mix. You pick it up like this with the back of your palette knife. So I'm going to mix the sky color first. I'm going to mix 3 different tonal values of the same blue. Now I take quite a lot of white. I've got a big canvas, and I take very little blue. Now I'm going to use my cerulean. Whew, getting to see how strong that is. There's my cerulean. And I'm mixing that now first. Quite a light blue. Now, the reason why I make 3 lumps or 3 tonal values is because I'm going to blend from very light to darker for my basic sky. So I'm going to take a little bit of this for my horizon. At the horizon, there's always like a pinkish or a peachy tint because of the dust particles in the air. Now just be very careful, your red is very, very strong. So I always rather take too little than too much. I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow to make it like a peachy color. A little bit less pink, a little bit more peach. There, it's very, very hazy. You're not going to see much of it. I think I'm going to need more. So I'm just going to mix a little bit more. I think that, oh, there it's a little bit strong. Okay, not too bad. I can always add a little bit of the blue. Now make sure that you wipe your palette knife before you pick up the next paint. Otherwise you're going to have a little bit of a mess, a groot gemors on your palette. Okay, now I've got my horizon. I've got this blue for a little bit higher up, and I'm going to need a little bit more for the top. So I'm going to mix a little bit more blue, a little bit bluer, a little bit darker blue than that. And I'm going to have a hazy, wispy sky. Okay, there are my 3 lumps. I've got my sort of a peachy pink and lighter blue and a little bit darker blue, but not too dark. I'm going to introduce you to something else as well. This is called oil painting medium. You can also call it Liquin. Now what you do with this is you're going to put a blob down. You just put a blob down near your paint. And what you're going to do is every time you take some paint, you take a little bit of that as well. And that's going to make your painting go dry much, much quicker. I'm taking my very wide brush, dipping it a little bit in my terps, wiping most of the terps off like this. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Liquin and a lot of my blue. And I'm just going to put down my blue. Very light, because I'm going to have clouds there. If I've done that, then I'm going to take the mid blue, the little bit lighter. That's going to go here in the middle. And my pinkish color is going to go right on the horizon. I'm going to finish that and then I'll show you. I've decided that my blue is too light, so I am mixing darker blue, and I'm just basically putting down the blue. I've done my little pinkish on the bottom, and I have to blend it in so that it slowly goes bluer. So I'm just basically covering my canvas or my board at the moment, because that's just going to be my background for my clouds. It doesn't have to be perfect, because my clouds are going to take over. Not the first lot of clouds, because those will be the wispy ones, but my second lot of clouds, the dark ones with the rain in it, they are going to be a little bit different. So for my wispy clouds, it's very good if I have a sort of a patchy blue. So I've basically just covered the top part, and you see it's not totally blended, because that's what I want. Now it's going to give me a nice area here and there to do my wispy clouds. So I'm going to take my fan brush. Okay, I'm taking quite a lot of white. I'm taking a little bit of yellow, very, very little yellow. It must just be off-white. And I'm going to wet my brush with a little bit of turps, and then I'm wiping it off again, like that. So I'm taking a little bit of this white on both sides, just on the edge. And now I can start making my wispy clouds. There's a little bit of yellow coming through, but that is actually stunning, beautiful. I'm just going to switch the light off because I think it's too light. You can't properly see this. Ah, that's a bit better. There's my wispiness coming through. I take a little bit of my turps, a little bit of my white, and then I make my wisps. Now I can decide where I want them, what pattern I want. I can do this and go right from the bottom and make my wispiness upwards. Sometimes you see that kind of a sky. Let's try that. And the clouds are not exactly the same width or the same thickness all over. Let's put one here in the middle as well. Now, very often you see these kinds of clouds. And then they start dispersing a little bit. Ah, isn't that nice? And there you have very wispy clouds. I'll take a photo in a little bit of dark area, and then you can see them even better. Okay, there I have my white. I have the blue that I mixed for my sky, and I've got the yellowish white over here. I'm just going to make a few little lumps now with different colors. Let's take some red and yellow. Oh, the red's very strong. And we make a bit of an orangey color, and I add that to my white. So it's still a very light color because I don't want my clouds to be overpowering. Then I can take a little bit of this blue, the ultramarine, add it to that blue, plus a little bit of Payne's grey. What's happening there? I need a bigger lump. I'm going to need nice dark clouds for my rain that's coming. So I'd use what I've got. There I've got some light grey, but I want some very dark clouds, so I just add a little bit. And you see, I don't mix them totally because I'm going to like what's going to happen on my canvas. Okay, let's see, a little bit of purple. We need a bit of purple, so let's use some of the blue, some of the red, make a nice purple, and now we just add white. Ooh, that's a bit too red. That red is very, very strong. There's purple. I can make them darker if I want to. Okay, I think that's basically what I'm going to use. I can even add more of the colors if I want. So let's start. I'm going to use that hard brush of mine, a hard flat brush with a hard hairs in it, because I'm going to use the brush not like we normally do. Normally we paint like this. I'm going to use it like this. And I'm going to make movements, pushing the paint up and down. And I'm going to load a lot of paint. So let's look at my picture. I have quite a lot of white in the middle, but I have some of this pinkish orangey color. I can even make it more pink, more orange. So I just dip my paintbrush in the terps a little bit. I can even use the Liquin if I want to. And I'm going to put some of this down where I see it. Now I see it there. See, I'm pushing it up and down. And it just makes shapes. Looks like a big mess, but you're going to see what happens now. Right, it mustn't be too wet. Let's have a look now, and we're going to add some very, very dark clouds just above that. Push it around. I'm going to refine it later. I'm just putting my paint down for the moment. And it still looks like a big mess. Here and there I have a little bit of a dark piece as well. Some very darks here. And that's the rain just about ready to fall. I can even add some more of my Payne's grey and make it even darker. So let's do that. I just take my Payne's and I add it, and it's almost black. Very, very dark sky. I like what's happening there. And I don't clean my brush. I just wipe it a little bit, like that. Because I don't mind my colors mixing now. It's going to be interesting. Now I'm going to use the lighter grey that I've mixed. Push my paint up and down, up and down. And I take quite a lot of paint. And you see, I just did it over the other paint, my sky, so everything is wet. But I don't mind. I want to change my clouds now. I've decided I don't want hazy clouds. I want stormy clouds. So all I do is I add that now. Nice thick paint. I spread it around, push it up and down. You see, if you hold your brush like that, like this, then you're going to want to make little blobs. And eventually you're going to have clouds that don't look real. They'll just look like little bolletjies, little balls. Okay, we've got all our greys now. Now we're going to add the white. First of all, I start with my yellowish white and I add that in. Okay, there's a little bit of that. Now I have to clean my brush because I'm going to use a lighter color. Otherwise, it'll pick up too much of the dark. So let's have a look. I've cleaned the brush and I mixed more of my yellow. See, there's a little bit of bright yellow there as well. Doesn't matter, the sun is going to shine through my clouds in any case. So I just load up, and that's what I do. But you know, in between all this yellow and grey, I also have my purples. So let's add a little bit of purple here. Let's put the purple here close to the grey. That's going to look very nice. Some purple there. And some purple over here. I can even add a little bit of this orangey color. Making a nice big mess here now, which I'm going to fix afterwards. Now I want a lot of white, But my white is not going to be pure white. It's going to be mixed with a little bit of yellow, but very, very little. If I look at my picture, I'm going to need a lot more white in this area here. So I'm just putting down white at the moment with tiny little bit of yellow mixed in. Pushing up, down, sideways. Lots more white. Pushing down, up, sideways. It's picking up a little bit of the blue that's underneath my sky blue, and that's fine. You can wait until your painting is dry, or you can paint wet on wet. It doesn't really matter. Now I've got to bring back the darks again. My murky sky, because that's just a very light patch, which means that the sun is trying to shine through there. It's not as thick there as it is where the dark clouds are, because it's letting in more light. It is reflecting more light. I'm going to have to mix a little bit more of this dark. Oh, that's a beautiful mess. Is yours looking like a mess now? Well done, you've got it right. Don't worry, you'll see just now what's going to happen. Just remember that oil painting is a process. People want to finish the painting in one sitting. You're not always going to get it right. It's called impasto, wet on wet. And it doesn't always work because sometimes you are making mud. I just need to make a little bit more of my dark again. Once again, I haven't totally mixed it. I like that white to come through. It's exactly what I wanted. Okay, I think I need a little bit more of this purple. A little bit of the purple here. That's going to look nice. Okay. My studio is very light today, and I think we've got a very strong sun. But there is my nice big mess. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another brush, or even this one, but I like to use a little bit softer brush, and I'm just going to define my clouds a little bit. I'm going to use the full bit, which is the round flat one, this one, to define and to soften my clouds. And remember, I'm not going to make little bolletjies, and this time I'm not wetting my brush, so all I'm doing is very softly I am just pushing the paint around to make it look softer. Look at my brush strokes, it's in the flick of the wrist. All I do is this all the time. Round, up, down, and look at that. It's becoming beautiful and hazy, and we're going to put definition in just now. So I'm working on my darker colors first, and then I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to the lighter colors. Up and down, remember, otherwise you're going to make little balls. We don't want to make little balls. Here I'm just doing this so that the bottom of my clouds are quite hazy there. And remember, even though the clouds look flat to us at the bottom, they are not really flat. If you struggle, you can still do this. Hold it this way, because that really prevents you from making little bolletjies. I like what's happening here. Whenever something like this happens that you don't really plan, then I call it a happening, and it's beautiful. You're going to see what these clouds look like now, like real stormy clouds. There's my little bit of light coming in. I need to make more of these sideways, up and down. Okay, and now I'm going to work at the top where there's still some dark, and then I'm going to clean my brush to do the lighter areas. And right at the end, I'm going to put in my highlights that will define my clouds. So I'm going to put some light areas and some very dark edges as well. And painting in the negative. Remember with the apple that we said we're painting in the negative, which means you paint behind so that your whatever you've painted stands out. I've worked on the dark areas and I've cleaned my brush. So now I'm working on the light areas. Try not to bring that dark in. I try to push it out. There's lovely yellow there. Some purple coming through. Some of that pinkish purple coming through. A little bit of the blue sky coming out here and there. Doesn't matter. We're going to cover everything eventually. Just remember, it is a process. Okay, now I need to highlight some of my areas and bring in dark in some of my other areas. I take the Payne's grey as is. And now I'm painting in the negative. I'm just darkening some areas that I want to have very dark. I'm just going to get more paint. Right, I'm taking my dark. I'm adding some dark here and there. It's quite wet now. Remember, your clouds will probably not look exactly like the clouds that you've got in your picture. Want a little bit of that dark in there between the light. I want to bring some more of the dark right here at the top. I just take my Payne's grey as is because it's going to mix here with the rest. Bring back a bit of dark everywhere. It's a nice gloomy sky. I don't want to get rid of all my purples. I want to keep them. And my pinks and my yellows. I'm just bringing back a little bit of the dark, which went away with it because I mixed there with the blue. Bring a little bit of dark there at the top. Okay, I think I've got enough. So I'm just going to work on those edges a little bit. I'm just going to work on the edges a little bit. Still looks like a big mess, don't worry. It's going to look like a mess for a while. Let's start with adding the lights. Because as I always say to my students, I know this bothers your eye. So let's stop bothering the eye and we bring in some of the lights. And there I'm using that yellow and white, and I'm making an edge. The sun is coming there. The sun is coming a little bit lighter there. What I do is I put down the paint like that. Then I make sure that my brush has no paint on it. I wipe it, and then I take the brush like this and I push from the bottom so that it makes a beautiful little edge there. I'm not going to do it everywhere. I'm just going to do it somewhere. Now, I've found that my paintings are always much brighter than the picture that I use. It's very interesting. You can go and Google chroma tetra. If you have chroma tetra or a chroma tetra, it means that you see more colors than other people. Very interesting. And I see 44 colors in that test. So go and have the test and see what it looks like. Right, I'm just going to work a little bit on the edge now. I'm going to take a little bit of my purple as well. And here by my purple, I also make a little bit of an edge. So now I'm working on my edges. There I'm making a bit of an edge. This can't look like a white hole. I've got to do something about it. So I'm adding my different edges of the clouds inside. Now by this time, it doesn't look like the picture that I saw in the beginning, because I've made the clouds my own. And that is what I like. I always say to my students, don't copy someone else's work. You are doing yourself a disservice. You must learn to do your own thing. People must want to copy you. Right, so that's all I'm doing now. I'm just doing edges. So there, I'm going to put some dark in to make that dark edge there. I bring that edge from here. Putting a bit of a dark edge in there. Bring it from here. So you can play around a little bit and just add in your own edges wherever you like. Okay, so what I'm doing on this side now is I'm just taking and patting here and there and just making little lines to make sure that my clouds are not little clumps. See, something nice is happening here, and some here and there I'm just bringing back some of that dark again. Some of the Payne's grey, bringing it in this side again. And I'm still holding my paintbrush like this because then it prevents me from making little clumps, bolletjies. Okay, there I need to make sure that these clouds all become one part. So there's a little bit of all kinds of paint here, and that doesn't matter. Still my little bit of purple is coming through, and a little bit of the yellow. I'm just adding some darks again, and even in the light part there are some darks as well. I'll come back and do my little bits again. And always remember, when you look closely, then it looks like a huge big mess. But you have to stand back and look at the painting. I also go closer to look because I want to see what the artist did. But you can't look at the painting close by. You have to stand back and look at the bigger picture. Right, I like what's happening there. I still need a little bit more white here. I see too much of the blue coming out. So I'm just going to add some more white there, but with a little bit of yellow. So I'm still working on my clouds. I'm just defining them a little bit. Make sure they look like one unit. I can't have little bolletjies hanging around. I think it's beginning to look very nice. If you look at it from afar, there's a little bit of light there, a little bit of darks. I don't like what's happening here. Do you see what I did there? Like a mountain and a mountain and a mountain and a mountain. So I've got to work those away, otherwise it's going to bother my eye. So all I do is I just soften those lines a bit. I let them fade, and these I can keep. There we are. That looks a bit better. Well, I'm happy with it. I think that is done. For my palette knife painting, I am using a smaller canvas, 25 by 21 centimeters, and I have drawn my horizon line there, 13 centimeters from the top. I think that would be fine. I'm using my small palette knife. I'm just going to clean it a little bit because it still has some of the colors on it. So I have exactly my same colors. I've made my little balls, my little tonal values of white. So I've got pure white, yellowish white, purple white, pinkish white, sort of a peachy white. I've got grey, and then I've got my Payne's grey as well. So that is what I'm going to use. And this time I'm only working with my palette knife. Now just remember, because you're using a palette knife, you're using a lot of paint. This is how I hold my palette knife. Like this. And I'm going to scrape and work like this. Just like the builders use with the cement. Right, so I'm going to start with my darks again. So I'm going to use my very dark grey. Made some very dark grey here. See, I don't mix it properly. And I'm starting at the bottom. I'm just putting it down and just smearing it around a little bit. I'll come later on and just add whatever I want to add. Very dark. I love working with a palette knife. Some very dark at the top there. So all I'm doing at the moment is I'm putting my paint down, and I can just wipe it off like that on my canvas. Bringing in some greys. I'll give my cloud form later on. I'm just putting colour down. I'm going to put a little bit of my purple, white there. putting a bit of my purple white. I'm adding a little bit of this color here at the bottom. Now remember, it's going to look like a big gemors, like a big mess in the beginning. Because remember what I said, don't look at your painting from close by. You've got to stand up and away and have a look there. So I'm trying to sort of do what I see in my picture. I'm just putting the colors down. And now I'm going to take a lot of white with a little bit of yellow. And I'm just putting that right in the middle. And that white also has little bits of grey in it. I've got to remember that. I'm just putting my color down at the moment. Scraping it, put it down. Just like you would put some butter on your bread. Smearing it around a little bit. There we are. I'll bring back some of my darks again. So basically I've just covered my canvas now. So now I've got to give form to my clouds. So I go back and I add some of my darks, and now I start shaping just what I see. And it's going to look like a mess. I just put down and I do these little pressing and smearing movements. Pressing and smearing, pressing and smearing. And I'm just going to bring some of that dark into my whites as well. Just like with the other painting, some of these colors will look as if they disappear. But if you did not have them in between your grays will look very chalky, and it will not be really beautiful clouds. So I'm just bringing back some of my grays in between, just where I think I see something. So I'm still just doing that. I'm wiping it every time so that I don't make mud. So I wipe it quite clean like that. So now I can start putting some of my grays in there and some of make sure that your whole canvas is covered and colored. Okay, so now I'm bringing a bit more of my grays into my white color, just where I think I see it. What you can hear is me scraping the paint off my paper palette. It's going to look quite rough, but that's what it's supposed to look like. That is what palette knife does. And a little bit more there. Just make sure that your whole area is covered. You don't have little white open holes. And if I want to make something more flat, I just draw or scrape my palette knife sideways or up or down, whichever way I want to go. It makes a beautiful effect. Right. Now it might not look much to you, but those are actually very nice clouds. And when you are going to do your bottom part, you're also going to do that with a palette knife. Make a little boat on the water or a boat on the sand or whatever. And that'll be a lovely little painting that you can hang up or give to someone as a present. Another way of making very beautiful soft clouds are with a flat brush, a very, very soft flat brush. I take white and a pinkish color like tint. Flesh tint works very well, but it has to be very, very light. I mix it with some turps. It's going to be quite watery and very light. So it's just off-white, but with a pink tint. You can also mix your own flesh tint by using pink, like we did for the other clouds. So I'm going to do a very soft cloud now. See how I use the point of my brush. Very soft motions. Can add a little bit more of the pink. Oh, that's too much. Oopsie. It's a very strong color. I'm going to just move it around and add some much more white. But it's going to make a beautiful cloud. I'm going to work a bit on this. I'm just adding more white. It has almost an orangey color, and I can change that when I put more white in it. So it's becoming a beautiful soft pinkish color. I'm just moving my paint around. And I can add some other colors as well. Just going to make a little bit more on this side. Absolutely just with a point of my brush. I always say I tickle with my brush. Make it very, very hazy. Now I can add other colors to make my soft clouds. I'm going to use a bit of my cerulean blue. Oh, that is such a strong color. Add a little bit of cerulean blue. It's quite strong, so I'm going to do the same. I'm going to add a lot more white. The cerulean is basically my sky that is now coming through the clouds. So I'm making it a very hazy blue sky. Adding it everywhere so that my clouds look very soft and wispy. I'm adding more blue, cerulean blue. And see, between my clouds, very soft clouds, you can see the sky coming through. The sky is a bit darker at the top, a little bit more cerulean at the top. Absolutely just with a point of my paintbrush. Add a little bit more blue if it's not blue enough, because the sky is usually quite darker at the top. Towards the horizon, your clouds will be lighter because of the dust particles in the air. Okay, I've got quite a bit of the blue in now. Just going to finish off my blue. I find that some of the canvases are quite dry. So I actually like to put a bit of my oil terps mix on first, which I didn't do now. Oil terps mix is 30% linseed oil and 70% turpentine. And that's my terps linseed oil mix. And what I do is I normally just paint my whole canvas with that, and then after about 5 minutes I wipe it off, and my canvas is not totally wet, but it is pliable, so it's very nice to work on it. I'm bringing back my soft clouds again. See how I'm just tickling it. Very, very soft movements, and my wrist is moving all the time. I'm turning my brush this way and that way. My wrist turns this way and that way. I'm not painting little dots. I'm not lifting up my brush. I keep my brush on the canvas all the time. I'm just fluffing it out a little bit. I can also use my fan brush to fluff it out. Here's my fan brush. I can do that with my fan brush. It just makes it very hazy, like cotton wool. It looks a little bit stripy, so I'm going to come back with my pinkish color. Just add a little bit again. It's just, this looks very stripy because this canvas or this board is very, very dry. I actually don't like working on such a dry one. But that is going to be a very nice sky for whatever I want to do underneath. I can do landscape or a seascape or anything else. Now the edges of my cloud especially, I wipe my brush every now and then. I don't clean it. I just wipe it, and very softly I push the paint around a bit, and I just make the edges very light and hazy and see-through, because that's what clouds look like. If it's still a bit stripy, I just need to get rid of some of the stripiness. I'm going to add a little bit of this pinkiness on my horizon, because that's where the dust particles are. And there's some like a misty haziness coming up there. I'm probably going to make a sea. I live by the sea, so very often this is what it looks like at the sea. And there are my very hazy clouds. It's actually nice to look at it from far away. Soft hazy clouds with a flat brush, and I just use the edge of the brush on the canvas. I tickle it. I don't lift it up at all, so I'm not making dots. I just push paint around very, very softly so that I have a beautiful candy floss cloud. And there we are. Now I can paint the bottom part. I hope you enjoyed that one. I've decided to do something else. I've mixed a little bit of lemon yellow with white, and I'm just making a little edge on my clouds, just because I want to see what it looks like. So I'm defining my clouds a little bit more, just putting a little bit of light in my clouds. I'm not going to do it all over. I've just decided to do it in this little area here. And I'm just mixing it in with the rest. And I've just got that little edge. I can decide if I want to do a little bit more. Put a little bit of the yellow on the top part, the bottom part of this cloud, and see what it looks like. So I'm experimenting a little bit, and that is the whole thing about painting. You need to try things out. If this doesn't work, all I do is I can just mix that in or wipe it off, take it off with turps if I don't like it. But I sort of like the sun there shining on the cloud. I can even just take some of the edging away, work it in a little bit, and then when I do my sea, because I've decided to do a seascape, then I can add that light that is being caught in the sea, and that's just going to make it a successful painting. Now I've just got to make sure that whatever I've used in my sky, I'm also going to use in the bottom part. I can't pack out 20 other colors for the bottom part because it won't harmonize. So I definitely have to use my cerulean blue. I have to use lemon yellow, flesh tint, and white at least. And then I can add some other colors as well. But those colors have to be in the water as well, because the water reflects the sky. And that's it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It wasn't so easy, was it? The first time that I made clouds, that I painted clouds, oh my goodness, I had to practice and practice and practice. It's not going to be easy in the beginning, but don't worry, you'll get it eventually. And just try and live with what you've done. You know, often I walk past my paintings and I think, oh, those first paintings are terrible. But don't fix them. It's part of the process. Remember that with oil paint you have to be extremely patient. And you can do this over a couple of days. The paint is not going to be dry tomorrow. If you use Liquin, it will dry very quickly, like a day or two. But normally it takes about 3-4 days, depending on the weather. So please give me a call, give me an email, send me a picture of what you've painted. I would love to see. And I would like to have feedback on this video as well, because this is something very new to me. I do teach art as well, but these 3 lessons are the first ones ever that I've made on video, so I'm sure there are many mistakes. Well, enjoy painting, and please send me a picture. Bye.